Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Sue, no sarcasm before 9:30, okay? It's just not acceptable, okay? Complete staff works at work here, okay? Thank you. That work? Thank you. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Just a reminder that our meeting today is at 2 o'clock and is at the California Department of Education building at 1430 N Street, and it'll be held in room 1101. Just to give you a little highlight on the school facility funds, from last month from September through October, we were able to release little bits from the various bond sales for a total of about $15.4 million. And our good old pie chart, this represents the new construction bonding authority that is remaining. We have about $379.5 million left. As you can see, our chart is becoming closer to being full. With that, I will turn it over to Barbara to talk about some of the highlights in today's board meeting.
Good morning. So we have a pretty heavy agenda tonight, but quite a few district-related items. But we did want to highlight a couple agenda items that may be of interest to all districts and charter schools. And the first one is the reactivation of the inactive and unfunded preliminary charter apportionments. Excuse me, the stairs have winded me. Lung capacity is not what it used to be, sorry. Anyhow, so you guys have heard me speak over the last couple months about the cash that has been made available for charter schools to access advanced design and site apportionments. And we have a number of schools that have done so. Now that they have been able to access the cash, the statutory timelines can resume, and the program can continue for those schools as it was back before the fiscal crisis hit in 2008. So, in the agenda, we have 3 attachments of charter schools that have received the advanced design and site apportionments. And those attachments show the balance of the statutory time remaining for the projects. And if the board approves this item effective October 26, those timelines will resume. So if you received a design and a site, if you qualified for that advance, please do check the attachments and see if your school is on that list. And it will tell you the new deadline that you have to take your preliminary apportionment to a final apportionment. And a final apportionment means that you have all of the necessary approvals from the Department of Education, from the Division of the State Architect, potentially DTSC if there's any involvement there, and that you've submitted the funding application to OPSC. So please keep an eye on that. OPSC will be reaching out to charter schools on these lists to let them know that the timelines have started. And if you have any questions, feel free to give our office a call. Are there any questions on this item? Okay. And the next one is a quick one. It is the quarterly joint use program report. You may have been following this for a couple months now. We've done this a couple of times. Back a while ago, the board granted the old 18-month time limit apportionments to some joint use projects, and as a part of that item, requested that staff bring back a status report on whether the districts were accessing their fund releases. And we are happy to report that of the 5 districts, 4 of the districts have been able to move forward, and they've requested their fund release, and there is 1 district still remaining, and that district has been working with its local partner, and I believe they should be coming in soon, so we will most likely only have 1 more quarterly report on the joint use program. So they are moving forward. They had some issues to renegotiate, and once that is finalized, they will be able to come in for their fund release. Any questions on that one? Okay. I think next up we have Michael Watanabe to talk about the bond sale.
Okay, so last week, if you haven't heard, the State Treasurer's Office was successful in selling $1.8 billion in general obligation bonds. For our program, we did really well. We received approximately $1 billion for the school facility program. So with that sale last week, we've been getting a lot of questions. You know, what's next? Is my district going to get funded? How far is the line going to get drawn? So what we thought we'd do is kind of give you a high-level overview of what our office will do over the next couple of weeks to draw that line and determine who gets the cash. So over the course of the week, our office is working with the state treasurer's office, and what we need to do is identify the types of general obligation bonds that were sold. In the past, our program has received Build America bonds, we've received tax-exempt bonds, taxable bonds. Each type of bond sale has its own restrictions, you know, what we can pay out of it for each project. Along with each of those types of bonds, they are sold by proposition for our program. So, you know, 1D, 55, 47. So that creates a challenge for our office. In the ideal world, we'd be able to go $1 billion down the list, call it done, but it's not that simple. I realize this is small. This is the unfunded list as presented in the agenda book in today's board book. If you go to our website on the home page, on the right side under quick links, you can download a PDF version of the entire unfunded list. The unfunded list currently right now in the far right column that's in yellow, we have a list of every project that's submitted to certs that said they would participate in priority funding, that they could come in with a fund release in the next 90 days after an apportionment. So we have all the yeses, nos spelled out in that column, and it's published in the book each month. We've had a request recently this week to provide a listing of just the yeses so districts can have a better idea of where they fall down the list. So hopefully this week we can put that up for you also on the website, and our goal would be put that right underneath the unfunded list quick link. We'll put the yeses only. So our office, once we identify all the yeses on the unfunded list, we start looking at each project funding. The part you don't see published in the board book, but if you were to pull each project's funding shell, you'll see all the funding components of the project, whether they were funded or whether they received an unfunded approval out of a Proposition 1D, 55, 47. In the case of a charter project, if they had a loan component, it's a financial hardship. So we have to look at all those pots when we're looking at the bond sale and line them up appropriately. So with this bond sale, once we know each of the pots, we're going to go down each one of those yellow columns and just keep assigning one at a time in the date order as the board already determined, and keep going. If we run out of Proposition 1D at one line, that's where we stop. We keep going down the 45, 47 line and the 55 lines. When we get there, that's where we're done. So those are the lines that will be drawn over the course of the next several weeks. We expect to take these apportionments to the December board. Right now, that board date is still tentative, but whenever that does happen, school districts will have 90 days from the December board to submit a completed fund release authorization. With all the staff work and how many projects will be funded at this board meeting, it's a lot of work internally to make sure we can meet that December board date. So what you'll see when we index the December board is every project on the unfunded list will be indexed. And we've done this both at the December and January, February boards when we did these last priority rounds. That does not mean you'll necessarily get funded. We do it to protect everybody, to ensure your index so that wherever that line does end up being drawn, your index ready to get and receive an apportionment. We've gotten questions in the past is, hey, I didn't certify. Why am I on that list? We just index the entire unfunded list so we don't miss anybody. So that's it on the bond sale. Are there any questions on how that's kind of going to work?
Michael, do we know if there are any unfunded, or any hardship projects that are coming through being processed now for the December allocation board?
For apportionments?
Yes.
Yes. As we go along, actually, yeah, there's some right at the top of the list, some financial hardship districts. As a reminder, if you've been on the unfunded list more than 6 months, you'll be subject to a re-review of your financial hardship records. Our office has already been actively contacting all those districts that could potentially receive money, and we're already working with them to identify, to get their records into the house. We ramped up our staff to do those re-reviews to make sure we can get everybody we can to December board. Any other questions? Okay, we're we're back to having an implementation committee again. Right now it's scheduled for November 17th. We don't have a time yet. This implementation committee meeting, we will be talking about an implementation plan for AB 436, which is the new LCP statutes that'll take effect on January 1st or whenever DIR approves their regs. So stay tuned. We'll post the index through our normal processing on that one. Oops. And then lastly, we did a financial hardship webinar a couple weeks ago. That webinar is available on our website under the resources tab if you want to view that. If you have any questions on the financial hardship program or the re-review process, Jason Hernandez and Steve Inman are our points of contact for that. And here's their contact information. And that's all we have for OPSC. Any questions? Okay.
All right, good morning. I'll do the update for DSA. I think last time that I spoke to you was in August. So this is probably old news for some of you, but since I haven't reported since August, I did want to have information on our regional office changes, and our LA manager, Shaf Ula, has retired. And what we have right now is an interim management team. Craig Rush, who is the manager of the San Diego office, is spending 2 days a week in LA. And supervising architect Doug Humphrey, who's also one of our excellent resources, is also spending 2 days, the other days that Craig is not there, in LA. And they are focusing on maintaining office operations, but also making some improvements in the way that we do field oversight, change order approval in the LA office. And of course, this is in light of the hiring freeze that's ongoing for us, and there have been no external advertisement for that position of the regional manager because of the freeze. This is an update on the seismic mitigation program. Since we spoke in August, of course, we had the regulations that amend the program go into effect. DSA released its revised procedure, 0803, that outlines the steps for participating in the seismic mitigation program and DSA involvement. We did that on September 15th. We have workshop materials available on our website and OPSC website. So the way that the program, and as I mentioned before, since we anticipated a lot more participation, we took an existing process and tried to build more structure around it. So we separated our process in what we call phases of review, and the first one being verification of eligibility, which is a rapid evaluation, structural evaluation of the building using the eligibility evaluation template that we developed and engineering standard ASC 31. So for that particular phase, we have received applications for 46 buildings from 5 school districts. And we follow the typical process of reviewing the application, triaging them for completeness, and contacting the district by email if the application needs additional components. We then issue a letter that is either confirming eligibility or claiming that a building is not eligible. So far, we've issued 22 of those letters, and we continue working through those applications back and forth with the school districts and their structural engineering consultant firms mostly. The projects, there are only maybe 1 or 2 projects that are completing the other phases of review. I believe that there's one that's received an eligibility approval previously, prior to these regulations becoming effective, but the building is still eligible. I think that one is going through a review of design criteria, and it's going to pursue rehabilitation. But other than that, this is the most activity on that program to date. And of course, at this stage of the process, there are no estimates for costs of the work to be performed under this program. This is simply a verification of eligibility. Are there any questions on this? particular issue? All right. We normally provide an update on our publications, and you'll see a lot of revisions come through, but a lot of times those are very editorial minor changes, so I'm not highlighting those. The most significant change that we've had in the last 2 months is the updates to our IRA4. And the biggest change is that the IR expanded from 2 pages to, 3.5, and that is to take into account all the peculiar situations like elevator towers, metal site structures, etc. So this IR describes which projects need a geologic hazard report prepared and be accepted by California Geologic Survey. We've also expanded those sections that speak about projects that do not require report preparation and submittal to CGS. And we added a new section that talks about reuse of existing reports. So in other words, a single report may be used for more than one project if certain conditions are met. So all that is explained in the revised IR A4. And the last bullet here on this slide talks about report submittal to DSA by client. So the existing process hasn't changed. It's contemplated that it's possible to submit to have the geohazard report prepared and submitted to CGS at the same time that plans and specifications for a new project are submitted to DSA for review. But as in the past, DSA won't stamp out the plans and specs until the CGS acceptance is received. And so what we've tried for several years is CGS would accept the report, issue their letter, and then send a copy to us. The copy would arrive in our office without any kind of indication of what the project is. Just having a project name would not be sufficient, obviously, because of thousands and thousands of projects going through the system. And we've had tried things like designating a CGS contact in each office, and it does not seem to be working effectively. So we do have reports with concurrence letters submitted that are sitting in an inbox with no place to go. So the discussion at DSA and with CGS resulted in the new edit to this IR, which basically asks the client, once they receive a CGS concurrence, to submit it to DSA, and if at that time a DSA-A number is already available or there is a PTN number for a project, if it's a K-12 project, indicate that on the concurrence letter, and then that concurrence letter can find its home in the project file much easier. So that's the main administrative change in this process. Any questions on that? And this IR is probably of interest to many clients because a lot of projects, especially those on new construction on new sites, would definitely require a report. So I encourage you to review that. All right, and this information may seem funny because I'm talking about 2013 CBC, which is the California Building Code, but believe it or not, we're already starting work on this. So I'm providing a couple slides for information to let you know what kind of work is going on at DSA and also make you aware of about when to expect code changes to be rolling out for vetting and public comment. So the set of building standards that are going to become the 2013 Building Code are actually part of the 2012 Triennial Code Adoption Cycle if you use the California Building Standards Commission terminology. Now, both of our structural, fire life safety, and access, as well as our administrative standards, go through this process. Our regulations do not go through Office of Administrative Law, other for some non-plan review related programs like CASP. So we are actually starting work right now because our proposed changes, the set of amended regulations basically, is due at the Building Standards Commission in June. And time goes by awfully fast. So once the Building Standards Commission receives everyone's proposals, all the agencies that participate in this process, it's Housing Community Development, OSHPOT for hospitals, they will do public review next fall. But that's not to mean that our clients won't know what changes we're planning until then, because we do have other venues that we're going to be bringing forward our changes. The main venue is DSA Advisory Board and its committees. For our fire life safety regulations, we actually make proposals to the state fire marshal, and then they adopt our proposals that they concur with, as well as fire life safety standards for all occupancies. So you have to actually, and they've already started their process. Last week they had their first stakeholder meeting. So we will be participating there for our fire life safety regulations. Once the July 2013 is the Building Standards Commission date. That's the date. There's an actual date, but I just put in a month here since it's so far away, where they have to publish the the revised and approved building standards, and they become effective on January 1st, 2014. So this code process is a big workload for us, and that's where the focus is going to be pretty much this winter and spring for DSA. Now, as far as the planned amendments go, this is not the extent of it, but I wanted to show you two that we are working on right now, because those things that we're planning to do that we haven't gotten our hands on yet, they're too early to speak of. On our administrative regulations, we're going to be doing further changes to make improvements to our process, and that is to streamline the construction phase reporting and our process for reviewing those documents. And what I mean by this is it's not uncommon right now for a project to require anywhere from 20 to 50 verified reports from everyone, such as materials testing labs, special inspectors, project inspector, design professional, etc. So the idea is to look at that process and see where reporting can be consolidated. And this is being discussed by our advisory board. One of the ideas is to take all the special inspector reporting and put it under umbrella of one entity, for example, the materials testing lab. So that's one of the ideas. And it may not seem like a huge deal, but for projects that are hung up by the fact that they're missing 50 verified reports, it's going to be crucial if this can be simplified. And like I said, we are working with the state fire marshal. One thing that I really want to do is to clarify, if you remember SB 575, which is the law requiring automatic sprinklers and alarms in state-funded projects. We found that those provisions could really be clarified. So we're not really changing the concepts, but we may be moving things to different sections and eliminating some unnecessary definitions to hopefully shorten it and make it clear for the clients, which mostly are design professionals, which way to go on designing automatic fire sprinkler systems and alarm systems. There are some requirements in the building code that require sprinkler system regardless of funding. And then there are specific requirements in SB 575 that require a sprinkler system because of funding. So you can see where it can get complicated really fast. And we've issued revised guidelines on this to help the understanding, but we think that the building code and fire code could also stand some improvement. There are also some new provisions that we are looking at from the model code, such as voice activating alarm system. That's very interesting. So instead of a signal that sounds when an alarm goes off, it's a voice instruction. So we're right now reviewing all those provisions from the model code to see how they're going to apply to schools. So a lot of fun stuff. Stay tuned. And like I said, the fire life safety, the vetting and the public participation happens by the State Fire Marshal Office. They're here in Sacramento, just around the corner from us. But they are the ones adopting the code, so we follow their lead. Any questions on that? All right. And I'll be bringing you more updates as we kind of develop additional proposals. The goal for DSA would be to not have any surprises for anybody once January 14th comes. And this is a regular report on bin times, which are staying fairly stable. Our shortest times are actually in structural, and that is a factor of the kind of projects we're getting and staffing. Our bin times are higher in fire life safety and access, and again, that's a factor of staffing and the kinds of projects we have. Less staff, more projects that are requiring access and fire life safety review over structural, which is mostly complex new construction. And I was in the past providing several slides that had project scorecards for different kinds of projects. I've dropped the scorecard. We're making further improvements to it. I'll be bringing it back later, but again, mostly I think the scorecard is of interest to folks on a project-by-project basis, and that can be obtained from our website for those projects that went through receipt to stamp out. But in general, our total processing days for projects have stayed very stable over the last year, and I would say that they're fairly reliable in making guesstimates on how long something would take for review. And again, we try to account for both DSA time and client time. And I think that was the extent of my updates today. Are there any questions? All right, so I'm going to invite Fred from CD.
There used to be a requirement that DSA would ask for a district to provide an elevator letter if we were requesting elevator funding, or OPSC would require that. Is that still the case?
That's still the case because I believe SFP regulations require it. It's a requirement of SFP regulations.
Well, usually it's an access requirement that the elevator be provided.
But having to have the letter, I believe, with the project submittal.
It gets real circular. What happens is we get an inquiry from DSA that says, why do we require the elevator? We explain that, I'm just forgetting if it's OPSC that asks for it, but ultimately DSA says we need something from OPSC that says that they need the letter. It gets real circular, and it would really be nice if both agencies could resolve that part.
I had an inquiry, I believe, from one of our southern offices, but this was months ago, and I've issued an email explaining to folks why the requirement is there and why DSA needs to continue issuing their letters. So that was...
The districts need a copy of that so that when we encounter one of the plan checkers that isn't familiar with that we...
Refer them to me,
okay,
and I'll provide the guidance, but the problem they're throwing back at me is when this letter is being asked for after the fact. It's a tremendous distraction for them to pull the file that's already been stamped out to issue a letter on it.
Understood.
If they're doing it right then and there, they shouldn't be getting testy about it at all. And if they need confirmation that the requirement's still there, I can provide it for sure.
It happens less often, but thanks for...
But if you do it right there and then, any checklists, any letters, they have to be done at the time that the plan review is going on. Because we have considerable issues with storage and file location, and staff tries really, really hard to do the proper scanning. But even that gets challenging, because if you scan something under the wrong title, it may take a while to find it. So when project has to be literally dug out from the, we either have to request it from archives, but hopefully all of the pertinent documents have been scanned. If it's easily accessible, if it's still on somebody's desk, they can do pretty much anything you need. But if they need to be taken away from the job they're working on, go find the file, remember the project, then that becomes an issue. But I think it would be, I think when time permits, we maybe, and I'm doing more as far as educating DSA staff on OPSC processes, but things are kind of taken in the matter of priority. Our first priority this year was dealing with the Seismic program and making sure that the two sides understand each other's requirements, and we've spent time in many, many meetings doing that. Right now, my project is facility hardship. And then hopefully my next project will be something like that deals with fire life safety and access and the interaction between OPSC and DSA, but it's all a matter of time and priorities.
Thank you.
Okay, long answer, sorry. You got me on my sore spot.
Well, good morning. just have a couple things to talk about today. It won't take too long. The research on our webpage and some upcoming events that might be of interest. So last month I talked about some research that would be posted soon on our webpage, and it is now there. You can see the web link on how school facilities improve learning, sustainable schools, schools as centers of community, and safe schools. The intent of these is to provide board members, the public, teachers, parents, a one-page summary of the current relevant research on the value and the interaction of facilities and educational achievement. And there is a detailed biography available for those wishing to delve into the actual research or additional research not contained in the summary. So take a look at that. That's on our webpage. Couple of the upcoming events. We have on next Thursday a meeting of pipeline decision makers, and that's local board members and the like. Title V, since 2000, has required that a proposed school site within 1,500 feet of a hazardous materials pipeline, gas, oil, that an analysis be conducted on the safety of that pipeline and how it would impact the site. We have developed with URS Consultant in 2002 and 2007 a draft protocol that districts are free to use to make that analysis, or they can use an analysis as they feel appropriate. Following San Bruno and continual evaluation of the protocol, on June 30th we gathered together a group of the technical experts, the engineers who prepare the analysis, to get an understanding of are there changes needed in the protocol with new information that we've all found out over the past years. And in general, there are certainly some technical changes, some of the math problems, some of the other technical parts do need to be updated, and we're going to take care of that. But in general, the department feels that the analysis provides a reasonable estimate of the risk and potential hazards for a school site. And what came out of this meeting of the technical experts was CD can perhaps do more to help districts understand what's in that report. What are the consequences and what are the potential for a pipeline rupture? And that helping districts make the informed decision that however rare a pipeline rupture may be, the consequences could be horrendous. And how do boards deal with that? How do they accept that risk? So we are putting together next Thursday a number of district board members, some state-level folks like Bob Gorham, State Fire Marshal's office will be there, and California School Board Association, the folks that have to make these decisions at the local level as to the safety of a school site. So we'll have more coming up on that in November. Okay. Also next week is the Special Education Advisory Commission meeting. This is a group that meets about 3-4 times a year on special education matters. And last year I talked about CD put together a group to look at ways pursuant to Education Code 17070.80, which says that school facilities must be integrated for special education and general education. But that code section and parallel Title V sections allow districts to seek a waiver from the Special Education Commission, the waiver from the state superintendent upon advice of the Special Education Advisory Commission, to not have to build an integrated facility. And there are certain times that is appropriate. And we work with districts, with our special education colleagues in the department on those on a daily basis. And if the department can't come to consensus with the local district, the district can seek a hearing before the Special Education Advisory Commission. That has happened once so far. This will be the second hearing. The first one was 4 or 5 years ago. And in this case, the district is seeking a waiver from the superintendent to have special education students on a non-integrated campus, meaning there's no other general education students there at the same time. One of the basic tenets of the least restrictive environment through IDEA. So that will be coming up, and then the commission will make a recommendation to Superintendent Torlakson, and then a recommendation will go from there. Now, if the recommendation is denied by the superintendent, that district may not ask for state funding for that project. Also coming up in November or December we're putting together the criteria for the Green Ribbon Award. This is a federal program where the states nominate a couple schools for competition at the federal level. So that will be happening in November, December. Don't have the exact times and dates yet, but we'll get back beyond that. I think that's all I have. If there's any questions? Anything for anybody?